Who's ready to learn about a nebulizer? Yeah, I know it's exciting, isn't it? I love when you spend time with me, and I love it when you watch my videos and take notes and pay attention to what I have to say because it makes me feel important. All right, so in the previous video, we said that we have a sample jar, maybe a beaker, and that beaker is filled with a liquid solution, and that liquid solution is going to have to be sucked up through the machine. And that piece of plastic that sucks my sample up into the machine is called the nebulizer tube. Nebulizer tube. All right, so this nebulizer tube leads the sample to a piece, and guess what that piece is called? The nebulizer. Who would have ever thought? All right, so nebulizer tube, piece of plastic, can get clogged, sucks my sample up into the nebulizer, and the nebulizer does a certain job. All right, so we kind of mentioned in the previous video about this little knob that sits in front, and that knob is called the impact bead. And the impact bead controls the flow. All right, so what happens here is that liquid will come in to the nebulizer. And there is a piece in the nebulizer called the impact bead. And I'm just going to draw it right here. And when this liquid sample goes into the impact bead, this impact bead kind of splits the sample up into little bitty droplets. So that's the purpose of the impact bead. It makes me drops. Smaller ones, at least. All right, so after it goes to a smaller drop, then these little bitty pieces come in to the nebulizer, and the nebulizer takes these smaller droplets, in they go, and what happens is that it begins to make a very fine mist that comes out the other end. It takes those little droplets and it makes them tinier and tinier and tinier, and it gives them a mist that then goes into the burner head. That's the purpose of the nebulizer. So this nebulizer, you have to think of you at an amusement park. And on a really hot summer day, sometimes you go under those covered areas of the amusement park and you are sprayed with a very fine mist. It's not really water, right? It's not going to get you soaked. It's just a very fine mist that will cool you off a little bit as you spend the rest of your day at the amusement park. The same thing is happening here. This is basically a mist generator because the AA burner head requires the sample to be basically rid of all of the solvent that it can. And the smaller the droplets, the better it's going to be. All right? So keep that in mind when you're starting to suck your sample through. If you don't get the mist here at the end, then your AA is not going to do its proper job. So that's the purpose of the nebulizer. Now here's the thing, and it kind of hurts my feelings sometimes, but after the nebulizer, this sample then goes into the burner head. And this is where my flame is going to be located. But not all of my sample goes into the flame. Some of it actually leaves. Well, how much is some? 9/10 of the sample will leave and get thrown out of the machine. What a waste. It's kind of sad and depressing, isn't it? 1/10 of the sample actually makes it to the flame itself. So in a way, we are being wasteful. But in a way, That's telling you that the machine doesn't need a lot of sample in order to do its job the proper way. It only needs 1/10 of that very fine mist to be able to provide you a signal to tell you how much metal is present in your sample. 9/10 of the mist doesn't even make it to the burner, and it actually leaves the burner head and goes out of the machine. So one of the things that sometimes people forget is that if you've got liquid and you're putting it into the machine and it's only using 1/10 of that liquid, then 9/10 of the liquid has to come out. And over here to the side of the burner head, you will actually see a drain tube. And that's the purpose of the drain tube. It helps get rid of all of that liquid that's out there that never makes it to the machine to be analyzed. Which means that there better be a bucket down here below to catch all of that liquid that you're wasting. If not, that liquid's going to go in the floor, and then your shoes are going to be covered in copper liquid and iron liquid and lead liquid and who knows what other kind of metals have been pumped through that machine, but you're going to be bathing in them. So make sure that you put a bucket underneath the machine and make sure that the drain tube or the waste line is pointed in that bucket. If not, you're going to be doing a lot of mopping and a lot of cleaning around some heavy metals. Okay, so that's the purpose of the nebulizer. That's its job and that's what it does. So here is a picture of the nebulizer and the burner head that's made together, or a drawing at least of one. So here in the very front of the machine, that is where your plastic tubing is going to go in. That's why this is called the sample capillary. So the sample capillary goes into this piece, and that introduces the sample to the nebulizer, which is this big piece that kind of sits out front here. Okay, these other pieces, we don't need to know every one of them. Just understand, though, that you have to have an intake for the acetylene or the nitrous that you're pumping into the machine, and you have to have an intake for the air, and the air is going to go into the machine as well. So that's something that we didn't really talk about, a tank of air. Most of the time, though, this is done with some type of air compressor that constantly gives the machine air that it needs to do its job. Okay, so the fuel goes in, the air goes in, and the sample goes in. Notice here it says nebulizer adjusting knob. Some people call that the impact bead. That impact bead is right there that you can twist and make it suck faster or make it suck slower. All right, so the sample goes into the nebulizer, and this machine basically takes that water, that liquid, and it changes it into very fine droplets. And then those droplets are presented further in the nebulizer, and those droplets are then divided up into a very fine mist. Remember, amusement park. And the fine mist will finally reach its way to the burner, which is back here in the back, and that goes up and out along with the flame. Down here at the bottom, this actually says to the waste. So this is the waste line for all of the liquid that doesn't get converted into the mist when the burner head decides to do its job. Here's a real picture of a nebulizer. You probably can't make too much out of this, but up here at the very top, this is the burner head. So this is where the flame would come out. So that piece there, up here at the very top, this is flame. That has a slit that's 1 millimeter wide, and this is about 10 millimeters long. I'm kind of looking at it face forward here. Down here at the bottom, this round circular piece, that is the nebulizer. That nebulizer is the mist generator for the burner head. And then here in the front, I see a clear piece of tubing, and that is my waistline. So that's where all of the liquid's basically going to drain out, and it probably needs to go into a bucket so I don't flood the lab. Here's another picture of the nebulizer from a different type of machine, but all the basic pieces and parts are there. Up here at the top is the burner head. You can actually see a little window right here to the left and a small window here to the right. And on one side is the lamp, and the lamp comes through that window, and then the lamp light goes into that window to be measured by the detector, and the flame is going to come right here. All right, well, down below this round circular piece, that is my nebulizer. I've got one intake for acetylene, maybe one intake for nitrous if this machine's capable of using it, and one intake for air. And then here, this piece of plastic tubing that goes up through the front, that is my capillary tube or my nebulizer tube. The impact bead is here that I can adjust. And then my waistline is going to be here off to the side. That can be drained down into the bottom to the bucket below. So those are two different pictures of actual real nebulizers that you might find in a instrument. Okay, so just to recap, here's the structure for acetylene, C triple bond C with two H's. And I want to show this again because that's the main working gas for the atomic absorption. And then here's a picture of the flame, basically, and the sample goes in, and the sample gets shot up through the flame, and the light source shines through the flame. All right, so that's what we want to see here. So the nebulizer changes it into a mist. The mist goes up into the flame. That begins to absorb the light that comes through, and that's why you see this arrow changing. When I pump sample through the flame, it absorbs the light. So less and less goes through and hits the detector. And that's why you see the animation the way that it's made. Okay? All right, so we talked a little bit about the temperatures, we talked a little bit about the flame, we've talked a little bit about the burner, we've talked about the nebulizer piece on the burner, and the next piece that we need to talk about is something called the monochromator. So if you have been a part of the class, the monochromator is the same piece as it always has been. If you're watching this video outside of the classroom, then the monochromator is going to be new to you. So we're going to take our time, we're going to explain the monochromator, how it works, and why it's necessary for the instrument.